Going live in a few minutes. Actually, a few seconds. Let me minimize that. Alright, testing, testing, testing. So far, so good. So good so far. And start. That started what? Alright, and so it begins. This is Neal Parks, your host for Paranormally Speaking. Hoping everyone's having a great weekend so far. I know that I have. I definitely had a great weekend so far. Unfortunately, my wife is undergoing issues with sinus problems, and my son has a 24-hour virus. And thankfully, my 18-month-old daughter is sleeping at this point in time, so everything's looking good. Everything's feeling good. How's everyone doing out in Radio World tonight? Had a minor technical difficulty. I ended up on the air about a minute late. I do apologize for that. If there was some dead space that ended up driving people nuts, I hope not too many of you turned away. This is September the 18th. Last week's show, I talked about September the 11th and the bizarre events that took place during that time. As far as terrorist attacks went. And I did get several queries on that. That turned out really well. Had quite a huge following from what I heard. A huge turnout, large listening audience that night. Tonight we're going to start off with the traditional thing that I've been doing lately, the current events portion. Where basically I take things that have happened around the world, strange, bizarre, paranormal phenomenon, unexplained happenings, things of that nature. I'm not sure who said that. A crashed UFO. That one was brought to my attention by MSNBC.com. It states that an ocean exploration team led by a Swedish researcher, Peter Lindberg, has found that some are suggesting is a huge flying saucer. Lindbergh's team, which has had success in the past recovering sunken ships and cargo, was using sonar to look for the century-old wreck of a ship that went down carrying several cases of super-rare champagne. Instead, the team discovered what it claims is a mysterious round object that might or might not be extraterrestrial. Lindbergh explained to local media that his crew discovered, on the 300-foot deep ocean floor between Finland and Sweden, a large circle about 60 feet in diameter. You see a lot of weird stuff on this job, but during my 18 years of as a professional, I have never seen anything like this. He stated the shape is completely round. Star of Scream sees dead people. Scream actress Neve Campbell said that her former house in Los Angeles was haunted, and she used to see the woman that was murdered in the house throughout the house. The 37-year-old told British Life magazine, "I know that ghosts exist because I've seen one. A few years ago, I moved into a haunted house in Laurel Canyon, Los Angeles, with some friends. It turned out that it was inhabited by the ghost of a woman who was murdered there in 1991. She added doors would repeatedly slam, windows would open, and ashtrays would fly off dressers. Then there were times that the ghost would actually walk into the room. After a while, it just felt normal. I would pass her in the hallway and casually wish her a good morning." And this next one, Van Halen spacecraft. Former Van Halen frontman Sammy Hagar has officially spaced out. In fact, the guy actually claims that he was abducted by real-life aliens several decades ago in Fontana, and they had their way with his brain. Hagar tells MTV, "It was real. They were plugged into me. It was a download situation, or they uploaded something from my brain, like an experiment. They were trapped in my brain, and they tapped into it, and the knowledge was transferred back and forth." Hagar insists that the whole thing went down in Fontana, California. According to the ex-rock star, it wasn't the first extraterrestrial experience either, claiming he saw his first UFO when he was just 14 years old, hovering over a field near his home. "And just so we're clear, this isn't a joke," Sammy Hagar insists. "That happened. That freaking happened," he claims. The last story that I will go over with the current events portion. Pumpkin tree. Of course, that is a question mark following that statement. Greenfield, Iowa. An Iowa couple have discovered an eerie presence in their pear tree just in time for the approaching Halloween season. Des Moines television station KCCI, Des Moines being Iowa, KCCI reports that Phil and Janelle Lovely recently discovered a pumpkin that appears to be growing in the tree at their Greenfield home, 50 miles southwest of Des Moines. They say that they have no idea how a pumpkin ended up in their tree, but it appears to be the work of Mother Nature. A nearby garden vine climbed the tree, giving the now green pumpkin the appearance of having sprouted from one of the tree's branches. Janelle Lovely says people have been stopping by to see the suspended pumpkin since it was discovered on Labor Day. She's hoping it remains in the tree until it turns orange. The topic for tonight, of course, haunted locations. Many of the areas that I have been, for example, Beaufort, North Carolina, that consists of many different areas within Beaufort. A area that's a 300-year-old cemetery known as the Old Burying Ground, where a ghost girl is often seen. This girl died in the 1700s from scarlet fever, yellow fever, and died basically before her parents could be reunited in Beaufort. She and her father were coming from England, and her mother was in another part of North Carolina at that time, and going to be reunited. Alas, she died on the boat from scarlet fever, and ended up dying from that, of course. So, in order to preserve her body, her father got the bright idea of placing her body in a drum barrel of rum. So by doing that, it theoretically preserved the body, and when they met up, they gave her a proper burial in the Old Burying Ground. Also in this town of Beaufort resides one of Blackbeard the Pirate's original houses, where he murdered and hung his wife from the main branch of one of the oak trees out front. And of course the restaurant Clausen's. This town of Beaufort I have thoroughly investigated for the last 10 years. We go on vacation in this area, and we own property out there near Beaufort, so we always frequent Beaufort as much as we can when we go to North Carolina. And of course, I live in Chillicothe, Ohio. And Chillicothe, Ohio is one of the most haunted hotspots in the world, if not just Ohio. We have the Majestic Theater. We have Lloyd's Sweet Shop, which used to be a brothel and is now a candy store. Imagine that. We have the Camp Sherman Highway, which is also known as 104, the Hopewell Indian Mounds, which were decimated by the members of Camp Sherman to set up campsites for the Camp Sherman reservation, and they ended up leveling and toppling over a lot of these mounds. And of course, Chillicothe itself is built on top of some significant mounds and moved onto the 104 Camp Sherman site and reconstructed. So there were a lot of sites toppling over these Hopewell and ancient burial sites. The area that now is known as Shawnee Square, it's a huge shopping plaza. There used to be several mounds in this area, and they bulldozed over them and set up this mall and several stores in the small strip mall report having paranormal activity from time to time. I'm not really sure. I don't have all the details, but I do know that Dunham Sports has had some paranormal activity. They've heard children laughing. They've heard people running up and down the back storage area. They remember different variations before Dunham's even came in there. It used to be Salvation Army, and they had stories of their own as well. Point Pleasant, West Virginia. That's another area that I have frequented quite a bit. I've mentioned from time to time. I don't know if I've mentioned it heavily in this broadcast, but the entire town has been cursed by the dying words of Chief Cornstalk, and the treaty that was broken, and the blood that was spilled, the wars that took place, and of course the Mothman incident. The Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. We've been through that. We've done walkthroughs at the Biltmore Estate. It's one of the oldest and largest mansions in the Carolinas, originally built by the Rockefellers. And Marietta, Ohio, another location that's a top haunted hot location that I've been to, and that is one of the original stopping points, one of the original establishments in Ohio. It's a river city, of course. New York City. Need I say more? Between the battles of the 5 Points, the Ground Zero, you've got the Empire State Building. More suicides have taken place in that building than any other building in New York City. And of course you have Liberty Island. You have the stopping depot for all of the immigrants coming and going, and immigration coming through that port, the hall where they would basically sit and wait for where they were going to be deported or where they were going to be brought in and allowed to work in the United States, set up their own businesses. A lot of strong energy down the halls of that area, that building itself, just high energy. And of course Athens, Ohio, according to the British Psychic Registry, is the 13th most haunted location in America, and it is my alma mater. It's where I went to college. Bless me. I believe that I am coming down with the sinus problems my wife currently has. I've been clearing my throat a lot while I'm on the air, and I apologize for that. But Athens, Ohio, has the Ridges, which is the mental institution where so many people died from either tuberculosis, died from poor treatment, poor care, or prior to them being moved out, went mad and took their own lives. And of course, you have a lot of satanic rituals that have allegedly taken place in Athens, and the rumors of a vampire cult that exists, and the rumors that all of the main buildings that make up the Athens campus, when looking at it from an aerial point of view, make up a pentagram. Whether there's any truth or validity to this, I do not know. I went to Athens. I did my 4 years there, but I was not in a helicopter flying over the campus to determine whether it was an actual pentagram or if someone was looking at it upside down and it was a pentacle. Hard to tell. Places I want to visit, of course. Haunted locations I'd love to visit. We're going to come to that as soon as we return from our break. Going to go ahead and cut to commercial. Going to play a few short advertisements for your listening pleasure. and hope that you do stick with me through the remaining portions of this show. I'm truly enjoying it. I hope you are enjoying it yourself, and thank you for sticking with me this long.